With that, I'm going to introduce you to a few folks, starting with myself. If you came to the previous sessions, you know a little bit about me. I am Jason Balser. I've been working in the Northern Virginia area for about 28 years. I have a background in IT and helping clients do transformational implementations of different software systems. These days, I'm really focused on AI, self-described AI explorer. And also helping some nonprofits through some digital transformation work that they are doing as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce our panelists. So first off is Tom Bendien, gentleman right here. So Tom is currently the CEO of GT Edge AI. He has over 40 years of international work experience in SATCOM, broadcast news, systems engineering, and IT. He currently owns two businesses, one of which designs and manufactures breaching tools, that sounds impressive, that are used by first responders in the military. His other business is an AI consulting and management service specializing in private AI systems. He coaches cyber clubs at Loudoun County Public Schools and runs the Northern Virginia Cyber Meetup and Tuesday night AI coaching every week. Are you doing that tonight too? Okay. So sometimes he leaves here and goes and does that, so I was just checking. On the end here. Ralf is literally a rocket engineer. Too. He started his career in aerospace, designing rugged bush planes and the next generation Zeppelin airships in Germany. After pursuing an MBA, he stayed in the U.S. and pivoted into a 25-year career in emerging technology and business strategy advisory to global clients. As emerging technology thought leader, reality checker, systems thinker, and problem solver, Ralf brings his rocket science and engineering mindset plus a strategic understanding of today's rapidly changing technology and market landscapes to his clients' complex business and sustainability challenges. Along the way, he experimented with and followed AI long before it was called AI. And last year, he co-founded MyCoStrategist, a digital AI-powered collaborative strategy platform designed to help organizations and leaders find their inner strategist and chart value-creating paths to solve today's complex challenges. And then third, Mayra Ruiz-McPherson, who doesn't like to be blinded by the light, so she's standing off to the side until we turn the slides off. She is a cyber and media psychologist, AI researcher, and qualitative futurist, focused on the ethical and social implications of AI and cyber technologies. She holds an MA in media psychology, an MFA in editorial illustration, and is currently completing her PhD in psychology with an emphasis in media and technology. Her dissertation research focuses on topics specific to effective computing, human-machine relationships, and technology ethics. With nearly 30 years of experience in marketing technology, optimization, and creative direction, Mayra now speaks on AI literacy and ethics while mentoring in these key areas. She's also launching a nonprofit to advance AI literacy and equip workforces with critical skills to thrive amidst our AI advancing world. And there's actually a book, I think, at the table at the front. If you're interested more about the nonprofit, please sign up for that after the event. Yeah, so the way this is going to work is I have a few questions prepared that I'm going to ask of these folks, and then we're going to talk for a little while, and then after that we're going to field some questions and some conversation from you all as well, because I know there's probably going to be a lot of questions and a lot of interest in some of the things that we talk about. So first question. So AI and cyber are changing in and of themselves and the world at sort of a breakneck speed, and our capacity to absorb a lot of that change is being challenged. So as you think about the next 12 to 18 months, how do you see this evolution impacting the workers in our society, particularly knowledge workers or others, and what strategies should these folks and as individuals and organizations adopt to try to stay relevant and to thrive in our AI-driven future? And I'm going to start with Ralf to start with, and we'll go around each person.
All right, so I'm going to give away the secret. Of course, we knew the questions in advance, and I was driving in, I was like, what am I going to say to a diverse group of people that they could take something away from? You know, obviously AI is going to change everything, is sort of the simple answer, but no one really knows at what pace, for which profession, when and how, so what can we do to somehow come away with something meaningful. So I thought a couple of things. One dimension I would say, you know, where you are in your career matters, given what's going on, right? I mean, it's sort of little apple, you know, motherhood and apple pie. If you just come out of college, you're in your first 10 years of career, you have your whole career in front of you, you may have to consider different decisions with what's coming at us. If you're sort of on the other end, you know, in your last quarter of your career, you have different choices, potentially. Clearly, you're in a different part of your life. And when you're in the middle of your career, again, something, you know, you have a different set of choices. The other dimension really is what type of profession are you in? Which industry, what type of profession are you in? Are you a knowledge worker, i.e. you sit, for the most part, in front of a computer, you know, you might be a customer service representative in front of a screen, you might be an analyst, you might be a lawyer, you know, you might be a radiologist that looks at imaging and diagnosis, but for the most part you work with your brain. Bad news, it's going to come for you first, you know. If you work a lot with your hands, on the other extreme, on the other end of the spectrum, if you work a lot with your hands, lots of tactile touch, let's say you are a watch repair person. Let's say you're a brewmaster, you know, brewing a craft beer. Let's say you're a physical therapist, you know. Those, let's say you're a firefighter. Those professions, those trades, it will come there too, it will disrupt there too, but it'll probably take longer. You know, you probably won't see that much change in the next 18 months, although there's already people out there working on how to disrupt what you're doing, how to automate, how to make it simpler. So it's not that you're immune. And then of course there's sort of hybrids in the middle. There's people that, you know, clearly use their brains. If you're a truck driver driving down a highway through a city, I mean, that's not an easy thing, but we already know self-driving cars are on the horizon. They don't quite work yet, but it's coming there as well, right? So if you're a warehouse stuff and you grocery orders, you know, you're going to get disrupted as well. So those are sort of the two dimensions. Where are you and what type of work do you do? And then really, so then what's the choice? You know, the choices are, this wave is coming. You could either, you know, you have a couple of choices depending on where you are. You could either be one of the disruptors that actually actively, so first of all, everyone should lean in. Everyone needs to read up and stay as close as possible to AI. You don't have to become an AI geek and learn the math, but you should find yourself a trusted information source. And my hint always is trusted means it's going to cost money. Free information in this day and age is probably not really what you think it is.
Although these events are free, so.
Right, so find yourself, like I love to go to MIT Technology Review. They don't just talk about AI, they talk about computing, about biotechnology, about all the technology that's coming at us, and I trust them. Some people may not trust them, but stay close to the developments, and then you can, again, you have a choice to either lean in and become one of the disruptors. If you're earlier in your career, you might, if you're the best, choice might be, I'm going to get together with a bunch of tech geeks and figure out how we can make paralegals more efficient and more, you know, one of the sayings is, the jobs are not going to be taken away by AI, they're going to be taken away by humans with AI, right? At least that's the next wave, you know, and there's always exceptions, you know, but so you may want to become, or you may want to improve. That could keep you going for another 5, 8, 10 years. Or you could be the one that's on the lookout. So you should be on the lookout and say, okay, what's coming? I'm a radiologist, I'm a lawyer. I need to find the companies and the people that are already disrupting my profession, are building the app that uses the next super duper language to make the law profession different. I need to know those people and I need to watch them, and I want to be the first one to use that stuff, right? That's another change. If you're older in your career, later in your career, you might choose to just sort of like duck. not advisable, and depending on, if you feel like, hey, I kind of am already grandchildren, 5 years to go, I'm going to see where this is going, and if it happens, it happens. Now, I mean, I'm an example where sort of I fit into that category, and I chose not to do that. I want to be in charge of my sort of destiny, and so I went out and founded a company. Initially, no AI in its vision, but then we realized, sort of building a strategy platform that helps organizational leaders solve these complex problems. That, after 20 years of doing that as a consultant, that requires a lot of analysis, a lot of information, decision making, and I'm like, that sounds like something an AI could do pretty darn well. Maybe not immediately pivot and in our in our software application, right? So that's where you are in your career, what profession you're in. You might have to pick one of those options. Either way, you have to stay close to AI, but you may want to be one of those disruptors, or you may want to be somebody who really is on the lookout and be the one that takes the AI tools. Those are sort of the choices you have.
So, Ralf, you raised a lot of kind of key points there in terms of how people should approach it, what fields do they need to think about. As people are approaching this, one of the things that I think we need to keep in mind is what are the ethical implications, right? So from both from a user perspective, but also from the companies that are out there. So Mayra, I had a question for you to just kind of to follow on to this. How do you see the ethics aspect of this working from both from a organizational standpoint that uses AI or develops AI, as well as from an individual standpoint? How does that fit into this conversation?
That's a great question. Hi, everybody. Well, there's no single answer, right? I guess from an organizational point of view, as maybe most of you may have or not heard through the headlines, most companies are excited about these technologies, right? And they're looking forward to all the innovation and potential outputs and benefits of using and incorporating these technologies in their everyday and through their workforces. So conversely, the workforce, generally speaking, the mood is not as excited because they struggle with the fear of replacement. I don't know how many of you know someone that feels that way, or maybe have thought about that yourselves.
I also think it's just the uncertainty of it, right? So
yeah.
It's not even necessarily, I think I'm going to be replaced, but I don't know what's going to happen to me.
Yeah. I mean, they call it, replacement, but it could be maybe not replacement, but displacement to some degree, right? And also, may I give these to you? Thank you. And in preparation for tonight, and also working with other groups where I've presented and speaking to leaders in the business community, the fear on both sides of the fence, even though the leaders may not show it all the time, but the disruption it's causing behind the scenes, right? Like what we hear on the news and all that, fine. But behind the scenes, some of the fear is twofold. And all these things I'm saying impact ethics, so let me just give you that context. So from the leader side, imagine if you're a big law practice, right? And I think most of us know attorneys charge, $3, $4, $5 billion per hour for their services, right? And then you have retainers, and it's 10, 20 hours for whatever, and then they re-up, et cetera, as your case goes on. With these technologies, some of that research might be cut by half or 2/3, or whatever it is that they were doing with some of that time is repurposed through these technologies. That is possible now. Doesn't mean that the information is always accurate. You still need, to validate whatever results you get, but some of the time is shaved off. And so some of these executives, and not necessarily just law, in consulting circles, right? When you have these retainers of X amount of time, if some of that time that you had allocated or estimated is reduced by 1/3, 1/2, right? how is that time being repurposed? And you know, how do you bill the client if the client knows that these technologies are in play and the time's reduced? So in some ways, ironically, some industries and key stakeholders don't want to admit this because, again, these are, technology is a disruptor, right? And so the way it always has been now is like being shaken up. And so that has some ethical implications within an organization. And then employees, conversely, some admit, specifically, there's this one tech reporter that interviewed some workers, and they were saying to her that they're scared to admit that they use these technologies because if the job that you applied to had 20 bullets, of which, your organization now or department says we're now going to use these technologies, the 20 bullets you were hired to do have been reduced, let's say, by a third or a half, right? So what do you do with that extra time? They say, oh, we can be repurposed, you could be more creative, you can do other things, but what are those other things? Would that be a lateral move, a demotion, a promotion? People don't necessarily understand from both sides of the fence the implications or the impact, and the law doesn't help because we haven't even yet governed social media, so we haven't regulated that. So AI is certainly very far from being regulated or patrolled. So it just presents a perfect storm of challenge for the workforce in this very moment we're in.
Yeah, and I think what you're bringing up is that it's an unknown in a lot of cases, right? And on the ethical side of things, it's uncertain how we should be viewing things. And Tom, I think, both of the questions that we're talking about, one is, what do we see over the next couple of years, and then what are the ethical implications? You are perhaps working most closely with organizations who are adopting some of these technologies. From what you've seen, how are they addressing kind of getting ready for the next couple of years, and what are their perspectives on the ethical implications of some of these decisions?
Yeah, so the organizations I'm working with, it's kind of interesting how this is all played out. I'm working literally with a company in New Zealand that is doing micro-credentials on AI literacy for schools. I've got two organizations in Africa, one in Nairobi, one in Ivory Coast, that are bringing AI literacy over there. I've got 3 cybersecurity companies in the US that are my clients that are using our private AI platform for creating services. And obviously I'm glad, I wish I was there today, Chris, at your client. And I see James is there from Nova. Hi James, one of my Atomic Falls. But yes, all these orders, and also I'm working with a small business who have a chronic pain management business and therapy business in Holland, actually. So what I'm seeing actually across for using AI is productivity improvement, right? So the first thing I want to do is I want to save time. So this is again from an employment perspective. This is the quick run you can get on the board is with AI. If you figure out how to use it properly and responsibly and all that stuff, you educate employees, say, hey, this is where the line is. This is, you shouldn't always rely on it for factual information. You should fact check it. You need to understand how to use it properly, which most people don't actually know how to use it properly at all, or much more than just simple, what we call zero-shot prompting, which is just asking a question, right? But beyond that, there's a whole lot more. But firstly, what they do is they look for productivity improvement. That then frees up time to start thinking about new service creation and new products. The education-oriented organizations I'm working with, what they're doing is they're using it firstly to save time, and then what they're doing is they're creating new products that leverage AI. So net new things, new ways of doing things that you can do now with AI, like so creating this is something I think, James, we worked on a little bit for students, right? So it's like with AI now you can show the students how to build them themselves actually. I did some work over the summer with this, but you can do some new things that you couldn't really do before because AI will help you scale. The other big thing I see is people that have domain experience, so everybody has domain experience in something or some fields. The idea is creating some services or products out of that domain experience, which can then be sold in a subscription model using AI services, right? So there's still a huge amount of value in, all the people here, you all have domain expertise and judgment and experience. AI in and of itself isn't intelligent. It can learn, it can acquire knowledge, it can go out and get knowledge, and it can do research, but there comes a point where, you still need to guide the AI, and you need to make final judgment calls on what to do with whatever the AI is telling you. Or you need to know where the line is in terms of how much will you allow the AI to do before you say that's enough, we can't give the AI the ability to do above this level here. So I think, again, to recap, the first thing is, you learn to use AI for wherever you are at now for productivity improvement, right? In any case, just to free up some time so you can do some more thinking about what else is next and what else you can be doing in terms of skills development, things like that. And then what comes after that is, after organizations have squeezed the productivity, to where it can pretty much be, then the question becomes, okay, what can we do now? What new services and products can we create that primarily leverage the domain expertise we have in the organization to leverage that more deeply and extend that domain expertise more widely out into the market? And I think there's a lot of runway in front of us on that regard. So,
okay, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Mayra.
I just want to add something inspired by something that Ralf mentioned earlier. Is from the psychology point of view, we all have brains and we're all using them. Knowledge workers are deemed as he was saying, the 9-to-5ers, a lot of cognitive type of intense activity, and then of course the non-knowledge workers may be more labor focused. But both sides of that fence are facing this moment that we're in. It's a moment of transition, and that's as far as like what can you do in the next 12, 24 months, it is acknowledging this moment of transition that we're actively in. It's not coming, it's not next Tuesday, it's not next year. We are in a very transitionary moment where we, the workers, and people outside of the work dynamic, are entering an era where we're not deemed as intellectually superior. Now, there's pros and cons with everything, and that's not meant to scare. It's meant to awaken, because in terms of industry and workforce, the businesses know this, right? And so it just presents an opportunity and a moment of excitement of what could be once you have this information, that you understand that these technologies are being positioned as super intelligent, right? And so having that information and understanding what that moment might mean might help you revisit your current role or career direction to see where you can refine and upskill, knowing that that's the environment that we're headed towards more and more. And as far as within your industry, your own or family members, people that we care about, maybe make a habit of going to Google News or wherever you get your news, your trusted news, and maybe over coffee once a week, just keep it very manageable. Look up your industry and find one AI trend, make a note of it, see if it's related to you, if it's something that you can aspire to, because right now, the onus of attention on these topics is more about the fear and the job taking. We don't really hear about the retraining and the repurpose of workers, and so I urge you to not wait for some effort or energy or institution to come and rescue work, to take some initiative within your own industry and talent and start looking to see where that alignment might be for you as an aspirational shift and direction to upskill your capabilities.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point, and I look at, so if you look back through the history of technology, and we talked about this in a couple of my previous sessions, photography as an example democratized the ability to capture history and to store images and to convey images. Ability to be mobile and to experience different things in life. The internet democratized knowledge to a certain extent, right? It made a platform that anyone could broadcast to the world and also consume from anywhere in the world. One of the things that excites me about AI is that I think it potentially democratizes education to a certain extent, right? And so all of you have kind of hit on tonight a little bit about learning new things, retooling, and I'm a firm believer that we should all be lifelong learners in some sense, right? Because even if you didn't have AI, things happen, things progress, and if you're not staying current, then you're sort of falling behind. So I do want to talk a little bit about education, just a little bit, and Tom, I'm going to start with you just because you probably are the closest to some of the practical education stuff. What do you see as most empowering from an AI perspective as it relates to education, both from a student perspective and those who want to learn, but also from the practitioners of education, those who are teachers or administrators or whatever it happens to be?
Yeah, I would say again, if you look at it purely from the lens of, firstly it's productivity improvement, right? So the teachers know the students, they know the material, they know how to teach, right? They're also stuck with huge amounts of like burdensome work that's very time consuming, like lesson planning and other things, right? And content creation. So in Chris's group class, Cyber Club, it was actually Tuesday afternoon, yesterday, Holly. And I had my small group that I'm coaching on AI was there, and I mentioned about 3 p.m. that I wasn't going to be there, and then I said I would create some content for them, some projects for them to work on, which I had some ideas in my head about what the projects were going to be, and then I said I would send them over by 4 o'clock, or a little after. The kids were going to be in the club at about 4:20, and so what I wanted to do, why I wanted to do it, and what the result was that I wanted for the kids. And so all I did is put a few, one or two lines into some AI and say, create a 45-minute lesson plan to accomplish creating a use case project for them to develop their use case, and then give them a template under which to document it. Right? So I knew what I wanted to do, why I wanted to do it, and I knew I had to do it quick, and I knew how to get it over there. So I knew how to use AI to do that, right? So I know my prompt engineering, I know which tools I want to use, and they just spat out the little lesson plan for me for their 45-minute segment, and then I reviewed it, said, looks pretty good, boop, I just emailed it over to Chris and a couple of the guys over there. They then, one of my guys that I coach as well, stepped up and took some leadership opportunity and coached the kids in the group, and then at 6 p.m. I got the assignments from them, from a couple of them, and I was able to quickly interact with them and say, that's great. So you look at that, you look at the idea of saying, all those tools we have, the AI, the email, and the way that we can communicate quickly, those kids now that worked on those assignments that I just cooked up out of thin air with AI, 20 minutes before the class, are now already making some progress on their education journey, right? So I think it's working with teachers to look at these things, look at firstly productivity improvement, reducing the amount of high stress, high burden workloads. We've got other use cases where we've developed some AI assistants that are doing grading now. We've really we've got a bunch of curriculum and curriculum requirements and things like that we've trained AI on how to really reference the curriculum and the learning objectives. And then the teachers can now upload like 20 assignments in there, have the AI grade it, and then they can review everything. If they say, yeah, this is about right, or no, we'll mark this up, they can now compress hours worth of grading work in about 20 minutes and still do a quality job, because again, that's from the educator standpoint, and from the student standpoint, it's again, also having the ability to have good quality AI assistants that we're building in the classroom during the class, so they can ask questions of the AI, interact with the AI during the lesson, right? Because the teacher only has so much time to answer individual questions. What also comes out of that is the data set, right? All the prompts and all the questions that they're asking can then be further analyzed and said, okay, what are the kids talking about, what they need, and then the teacher can also, because they know how to teach, they can say, hey, they'll show the kids how to make their own self-learning plan, say, hey, we're going to teach you how to create your own self-learning assistant so you can learn yourself, and that all accelerates the learning process. And there's one example of a school in Texas that's doing this now. They've compressed an 8-hour or 7-hour teaching day to 2 hours, and their kids are scoring higher on SATs than kids that are in traditional school. Yeah. So
probably
it does work.
More interested.
What's that?
Probably keeping them more engaged and more interested.
Yeah. It takes more of a role of a coach as compared. They sort of, if you look at the videos from the school in Texas where they're doing this, the teacher is just going to move around the classroom, getting with each individual kid, giving them some personalized coaching, showing them how to use the tools, and the kids are doing it, and then they're scoring extremely well on the tests. Yeah. So arguably you'd say that's working. Yeah, it's successful, yeah. and all of that. So
that's great. So Ralf, from a business or an industry perspective, there's obviously a continuous learning and training aspect to that. You mentioned at the beginning, learning more about what it is you do and trying to stay more informed about what's going on. Do you see any particular trends or have any specific suggestions for how businesses can incorporate some of the AI training or guidance into helping their employees become more informed?
Yeah, sure. Kind of you can sort of hyper-personalize learning what organizations might need to retool their overall employee base. Some of these large organizations have hundreds of thousands of workers, but also from an individual, like what's the person interested in terms of a career, maybe hopefully inside the organization, but again, in this fast-changing world, one of the choices is to end in situations where some organizations like consultancies right now, honestly, are looking to get rid of people. They're not going to announce it, but the McKinseys of the world have retracted hirings, offers, because they see what's going on, kind of this whole thing. Well, all of a sudden this analysis can be done by the AI. Our whole business model, when we go to clients and tell them, for the partner you pay $1,000 an hour, and then we have our senior analyst here, which is still $300 an hour. Well, I can tell you the AI that we've built in our strategy platform, I would say that AI performs somewhere between a senior junior analyst. Yeah. Still needs supervision, comes up with some crazy stuff sometimes, but does a lot of things a million times faster than that analyst that you charge out at $200, $300 an hour. So yeah. That's a game changer. And by the way, in 6 months it's going to be a senior analyst, sure. And in a year's worth of time it's going to be as good as the. Yep. So they see their business model. What they do is lay off people, while they figure out how to survive. All the big, the AI boom, the people that build the supermodels that sit, in the background, they all came out with layoffs because what they're seeing, not maybe in the people that build the AI models, because those are very talented, high sought after skills right now. But if you're just a developer, a coder that works on Google's search or something, all of a sudden they realize, oh, coding, well, that's the first thing an AI can do, because guess what? There's huge libraries of code out there. So the first thing we can teach an AI, one of those supermodels, those big natural large language models, is how to speak human normal language prompt. And yeah. It's going to get you 80-90% there. So guess what? We don't need the coders, or we need less coders that are more productive.
So that raises an interesting question around kind of educational progression, what fields you go into. And so, Mayra, you're probably the closest to kind of the university level education of any of us right now. And in talking with my own kids and talking with other people, universities seem to have a couple of different paths right now with education. One is to just completely pretend like AI doesn't exist. Yes. Ban it, don't use it, it's bad, 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 bad. The other is a looser view of it, which is, professors, classes are able to have some more autonomy, and some professors are embracing it and using it in their classrooms. I haven't heard of any wholesale adoption of this as a discipline and really adoption of it. In what you've seen so far in your own educational experience, what's kind of the right mix? What do you think is the right mix of getting it right at the university level?
That's a great question. Well, I can speak to my direct, immediate experience, and then I want to augment with some thoughts outside of my university experience. Within my doctorate program, my faculty that I immediately report to for my research are very excited about us students using and working with these technologies. And so I think we get a lot of advocacy for using the technologies for research and what is often referred to as drudgery. Has anyone heard of that term being used for labor-intensive, rote, boring work? Yes, and so they advocate for our use of it within my program. I think that makes sense. We're studying cyberpsychology and working with these technologies and learning how our behaviors are influenced and impact with our interplay with these technologies. So there's no way that we could be that if we weren't interplaying with these technologies ourselves. And I think encouraging us to collaborate with these technologies helps us become more fluent and well-versed in that dynamic between humans and machines. So I know for a fact that other schools aren't as, I don't know if that varies per program within the institution, or if it comes at the institution level and not the departments and stuff. I mean, it's akin to workforces where the culture for AI is very fragmented. As maybe I was alluding to earlier, that some people are very excited, some are very fearful, then you have the people in the middle. But I do want to say separately of that, if I may, regarding learning, right? Learning is a huge component of who we are as a species. You learned what new thing today, and how many new things did you learn yesterday, and who knows what you will learn tomorrow. We are in a constant state of learning. And these technologies are being built and birthed to also learn, okay? And so us and them, we and these platforms, we're all learning. Obviously different pace and different scale, but we're all in a process of learning. Now, from a cyberpsychology point of view, when I think about learning and AI, I think about things like as this technology is reshaping the way we think about thinking, right? Over time, how will we collectively relate to knowledge, right? Knowledge that we produce without AI, knowledge that is produced in collaboration with AI, and how will we perceive ourselves over time as, in this super intelligent type of environment where we're not the ones being dubbed super intelligent. I mean, these are the kinds of things that, from a cyber point of view and learning come to mind.
Okay, and I think that's a great segue, because I do want to get some questions from you all. I'm sure that there are some questions here. Yeah, so the question is, if people are using AI to write their papers as an example, are they really learning, or are they just learning to manipulate the tool? And if I can paraphrase the question a little bit, I think it gets to the heart of, are we looking for an output, or are we learning for a learning process, right? So I'll throw that open to whoever wants to grab it, but yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so what I can share with the kids, like high school level kids and some college kids, actually, I can speak directly from both demographics. I coached both of these sort of groups of people. They're actually pretty smart. They realize that if they are what I call an AI zombie, if you're an AI zombie, it means you just put stuff in there and just output without really thinking about it or looking at it or doing any kind of domain-specific research, right? These kids already understand that. They understand that, and I tell them directly, I say, look, if that's the way you're going to roll, you are now at the same level as AI, and you will be replaced by AI because you're not relevant anymore. The AI will do what you're doing. Where you can show a thoughtful use of AI and understand its limitations, and if you spend some time doing research on the domain that you're studying, like calculus or geography or something, if you can offer a broader perspective on it and use AI just as a tool to help you brainstorm ideas and help you to reformat content and help it create content that you then decide how to put it together, then you're in a whole different place. So I would say that I think that's, last year there was definitely a bit of a perception that kids were just going to use the crank out content. I think Chris probably can speak to the fact that, teachers can quickly see if a kid is suddenly radically changing their writing style. It's kind of obvious, right? And then you have that conversation, say, look, if this is how you want to do this, then you're not adding any value. And when you don't add value, then you become less relevant, right? I think most people understand it at this point. So I would be encouraged and say, with some good coaching and education by the education community, I think people are already starting to move beyond that. So, yeah.
I think you just hit in your last sentence, the educators play a very, very big role here. Because I would say, just like with social media, I think, yes, some kids are very smart and will get it and will get the best out of it. Others will, I don't know, just take the easy path. Others will get completely bamboozled and don't know which side is up anymore. Because again, I go back, the last big experiment we had, you mentioned it, Mayra, social media. And that hasn't ended so well for quite a few of our kids, right? We have depression, we have suicide epidemics, and I don't care what the world according to Ralf is that all came from social media and the screen time and the algorithms shoveling and no regulation. We just trust the big tech companies that somehow they're going to fix it. And the teachers are left holding the bag. My wife's a teacher in the classroom. They are looking for help, so they need help understanding AI, understanding how to make the best of it. It gets back to AI is so tremendously powerful, and every technology that has this mega potential with AI, there's no limit going forward in the future. This is the big difference, But just like with atom and the bomb, when you have that type of a technology, as humanity and as a society, the education system, that brings up our kids, and we mess that one up, then you have a whole generation or two that's off the rails. So that's where we need to pay attention. And our politicians are, need to be, asked to pay attention. We all, and this is where it gets back to, we all need to pay attention. This thing moves so fast. No one has the crystal ball that really knows where the spark's going to be. We're still all experimenting, right? There's people that lean in, there's experiments. ChatGPT was a big wave call. All of a sudden, everyone looks at it, but we're still not quite sure where this thing is heading. We just know it's heading fast, and every 4 months or 4 weeks, some tech company announces we now have an even better model. It can pretty much do anything, It's like.
So I think from an educational standpoint, from my perspective, I think this is going to impact education pretty significantly in some way, and I think we're still trying to figure out kind of exactly where that's going to be. But I think it's about being conscientious and understanding, helping to guide students from an educator perspective, as from a parent perspective as well, that the objective isn't to necessarily get the right answer, it's to learn the process and to lean into that. So another question right here.
Yeah, appreciate the sentiment and the thoughts shared. I'm curious from a psychology perspective, when you think about human intelligence, what are some of the ways we can highlight the value of human intelligence in this context, and things that we can do that are very unique that, even with these AI models today, that just aren't in scope? And so I haven't heard that thus far, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
So Mayra, that one has your name all over it, so go for it.
It's actually a segue into what this gentleman just asked. Remember that all this super intelligence didn't just become intelligent without us. All the data that's trained these intelligences come from you, come from me, come from all of us. The intelligence that we're facing is a mirror to our own intellect. So I really want to start off with that. And then, in terms of what you've asked, because it's a mirror to our own, right? You have to regard, like, what does intelligence mean? That question, before all this AI stuff, was never agreed upon. There's so many schools of thought and theory about what intelligence is, and oftentimes intelligence is divided into 3 parts, 7 parts, depending on who you ask, and so on. Now that AI is here, I think it makes that question even far more challenging to answer. But one thing that we do know in this moment, can't predict the future, but in this very moment, no matter how much these technologies might show intelligence, one of their weaknesses under the intelligence umbrella is contextualization. So for example, and it pumps out all this answer, right? All this information, paragraph after paragraph, but it doesn't contextualize. Contextualization is something we do very, very well that these technologies do not. We have that advantage over them right now. We have to exercise our critical thinking. But ironically, human nature, we don't want to cognitively always put energy into researching everything and looking for information. So it's a conundrum that I think is very unique and individualized amongst all of us. But if we know that we're facing these challenges, I urge you to practice that contextualization and critical thinking in light of these, in collaborating with these technologies. I hope that helped.
Okay, can I chime in for a second?
Yeah.
So, AI and LLMs can be, again, with good human prompt engineering and things like that, and some of these agentic frameworks that are coming out now. Again, it has to be, the way that AI works does have to be initiated by a human, right? So the better job you do of prompt engineering, right? This thing about hallucinations, AI making stuff up, that's got nothing to do with AI. That's got everything to do with the person who's feeding in the user prompts and the system prompts and the RAG and all that stuff, right? And contextualizing things comes back to what are the data set that you're feeding it, how are you, what commands are you giving the LLMs to work within. So there's still very much that human aspect of the ability to exercise the deep critical analytical thinking, the human aspect of the human nature of the relationships. AI can learn these things over time, but yeah, the amount of complexity that goes on, the further up the stack you get in terms of the judgment and the emotional intelligence and all those things, the AI starts to struggle more and more the further you get up the stack. So I think the takeaway is, again, my suggestion is definitely think about what your domain area of practice is, think about what your area of expertise is. You've got to figure out, do your self-education and self-study, self-upskilling to figure out how can I start using AI to make myself more productive to start with, and then how can I start to use AI to do what I know best more effectively, or how can I create new things that I can do with what I know and the area of expertise I have. And so whether you're doing that just for yourself or if you want to create a new business around it like I and other people's did, if you want to go to your manager and say, hey, I've got some ideas on how we could use AI to do this and that more effectively, or I have some ideas on how I can bring AI into these workflows and help us do some new things that are cool. If you're that person coming with those ideas, you're part of the solution. If you just sit there and don't do anything, it's going to just be a matter of time until things start going a little bit sideways there. So focus on those sort of inventive, creative things that humans do very well, and just chip away at that every week. Unfortunately, I'm an AI 24/7 guy. I literally spend probably an hour a day, 2 hours a day doing research and doing stuff, and I'm constantly keeping an eye on guys I follow on X, and I've got YouTubers that I follow and stuff. So it's kind of, I feel like I'm behind with things. Every day stuff changes. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I think from a contextual standpoint, right, because there's a lot of stuff you can do with these platforms, but they don't have intent, at least not right now. But what is your why? Why are you doing whatever it is you're doing? If you're using one of these platforms, what is your purpose behind it? It's not just to use AI. It's not just to use a tool, but understanding from a humanistic perspective, why are you doing it? So this is a great example. Tonight is a great example. There's probably nothing you're hearing tonight that you couldn't have learned online, or that you couldn't have Googled or gone into ChatGPT and gotten an opinion about, right? But we all showed up here tonight because we wanted to have a live interaction with people. That's why we did it. We wanted to hear people authentically talk about this. We wanted to get different perspectives. So the why behind we do things to me is really important and is a big differentiator in some cases. So a couple more questions, and we can take longer, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But yeah, question right here. So,
Right. Yeah.
So real quick, just so people can hear that, so that I'm going to paraphrase your question, but the question to me is, at what point does AI or machines become superior to human knowledge and human thought processes? And I'm going to change your question slightly, and it's an unfair question to ask anybody up here or anybody in the room for that perspective. There's two components to that question. One is a knowledge component, and then the other is what makes us human question, right?
Yeah.
So, not to get too metaphysical and philosophical, but from those two perspectives, what do you think?
I really appreciate the question, and I wish we had more time that I could address it more explicitly, but thank you. But what I will say is that statement, sir, is I'm just the messenger, right? Like industry, if you just think of industry and commerce, not faith, not spiritual life, not metaphysical life, just in capitalism and commerce, where we're talking, the theme of tonight was mostly like the workforce and labor and stuff. In that sector of human life, the positioning of these technologies are that they are better and superior to our capabilities. And think about that, because the tenets of commerce naturally are very different than ours in terms of, the commercialization of these machines. For example, they're faster, right, than we are. They scale faster and better, and again, quotes, than we can. These technologies, they can only keep going forward where we are linear, right? So their outputs are more predictable, and human organic is not as predictable. We're emotional, these kinds of things is what they are saying. And so, so in the minds of these AI frontier developers, and you hear these CEOs give these chats and talks and podcasts, they're the ones that are positioning it as super intelligent. The term super is contrasting with us, right? They're super intelligent more than us. And so I'm the messenger of that. But as far as the rest of the conversation or your question, I agree that, it's debatable and arguable in many ways.
It's really about what we value, right? Yeah, it's really about what we value and what we want to optimize, right? So in a commercial capitalist system, you want to optimize output, efficiency, speed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
If we waved a magic wand and had a completely different type of economy that valued, and I'm making this up, but that valued compassion and emotion and human connection, then those things would no longer be superior to us, at least not today, because they don't have any of those capacities. So a lot of it has to do with what we optimize. Ralf, you had a comment?
Yeah, again, it's sort of, right now, humans are still in the driver's seat, and I think it is at this time, the next couple of years, where smart humans can decide where this is all going. I think commerce and industry and some of the people that are pushing the boundaries do not necessarily always have, all of humanity's best interest in mind. They're very narrow-minded. They want to beat the other guy or the other company to building the next better, bigger model. And so I think as societies, we got to be vigilant at this moment to make sure this goes in the right direction. Yeah. Because in a way, sort of, as special as humans are, our brains through evolution or through design, we're kind of stuck with this brain. The Neanderthals had a brain that was almost as good as ours, maybe it was a little less, but when you look at what currently is scaling, how these models are growing and the race for it, then yes, it costs a lot of energy, and the data centers are right out here, outside, and we need nuclear power. So there's some constraints, but really theoretically, not too many constraints. So this thing can keep growing, and then really, we want to make sure this thing goes in the right direction for eventually there has to be a future where these two, quote, intelligences, and again, we can get philosophical, metaphysical, but they're going to have to somehow coexist.
Yeah.
And the better we can design some symbiotic way of coexisting with this immense power that we unleash,
Yes.
the better it's going to end for humanity.
Yeah, so just to be, we can stay around a little bit longer and talk and have questions afterwards, but just to be respectful of everyone's time, I want to have one more question, and then I want to give everybody just a quick chance to have some closing remarks. Yes?
Yes, there have been reports that some countries are trying to penetrate our computer systems regarding water, electricity, transportation infrastructure. Can you say anything about that? Countries like China, for instance?
Anyone?
Yes. And we are so that adds another layer, because in part of that toolkit is of course AI, right? And just yesterday there was a report that a bunch of scientists in the university in Shanghai have announced that with a Canadian quantum computer they have succeeded to supposedly break through the RSA encryption that is pretty much encrypting everything we run on. One could ask why a totalitarian regime allows its scientists to make that kind of announcement, what's behind that. But that stuff is, we are in an arms race. This is like, some of us are old enough to remember the Cold War, where it was essentially two-dimensional chess, one opponent. Now it's five-dimensional chess with multiple opponents that are all kind of circling around us, none of them with good intentions, and they're probing. If we don't get AI and quantum computing figured out before them, it's a competition.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think it's also a quick segue to, there's a lot of talk about regulating AI. Well, guess what? The Chinese are not regulating AI. The bad guys in North Korea and Iran and Russia, they're not regulating AI. They're racing to get this thing figured out. Case in point, last weekend I was at a cybersecurity conference, and one of my AI developers, who I've coached for about 2 months now, he's gotten really good at like prompt engineering with cyber. He went into a capture the flag competition. He showed up half an hour before the end, and he completed all the challenges in half an hour and placed second in the competition compared to all the others that took 3 hours. And one guy only beat him by about 20 points, which is not actually a lot. And I displayed that graphical chart showing that it took everybody 3 hours. He did it in half an hour, and he nearly beat the guy in front. And he was doing this all on his phone. The other guys that are on a computer, if he'd been on his computer, he would have easily blitzed it. And so it shows you that someone who has AI skills and has the critical thinking, problem solving and mindset, that creative mindset, that's really the human quality there, can very quickly excel at tasks that would take others that don't quite have the mindset or the skills. And so that's, again, from the cyber perspective, that's a very real thing. And the only thing we can do is make sure that we stay focused on, I'm a big open source advocate. We've got to keep the open source AI going. We've got to give people access. We've got to upskill people, because the bad guys are not waiting for us. And so the more we get down in the spiral of regulation and doing all that, the other guys are going to be racing ahead. So
All right, go ahead.
So this is the topic, right?
Yeah.
No regulation?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Regulation maybe like Europe does it, maybe not, maybe that's overburdened, right? So where's that sweet spot? Because you make a very good point. The Russians and the Chinese are not regulating, but we live in a free society, which, by the way, that free society gave us those data centers out there, gave us the internet, gave us AI, gave us all this stuff. None of that came out of China or Russia. So I'm 100% convinced the solution is in this country.
Yes.
But it's going to be a struggle, and it's going to be a struggle for the next 30 years, for good and evil and where this world is going to go.
Yep.
And so smart regulation, because we don't want to end up in social media 2.0 where our kids don't know which side is up, or all of us for that matter, what's real, right? So we need some smart regulation, very smart regulation.
So what I want to do is I want to bring this back to this group here, right? So we've talked about a lot of stuff, right? And a lot of it's kind of existential and global and just really big topics tonight. And they're very important topics. We should be talking about them. We should be talking about them with our friends, with our families, our legislators, all these different people. But I want to, whenever I do these things, I like people to leave with some very practical things. You know, what can I as a person walk out of this room tonight and do? So my challenge to the three of you in your last 2 minutes, one thing that the folks in these rooms, something practical that they can do, and then pretend that you can see 5 years from now and give us in your 30-second synopsis a best case scenario. So something practical that people can do walking out of this room tonight, and then a 30-second best case scenario 5 years from now. I'm going to start with Mayra.
But can you repeat the first part? Because there's a lot of information.
Just something practical to better prepare themselves, to be more informed, some aspect that they can tomorrow morning get up and say, I'm going to do this today based on what I learned last night.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think practical. There's so many things. Well, if is there anyone here that hasn't yet tried to use some of these platforms? Raise hands. Like if you have no experience whatsoever with any of these platforms, that probably might be the first natural best step, is to pick something that you've heard of. You know, I think the one that has the darling, the media darling, is ChatGPT. There's others, Cloud, and there are free versions that you literally could just sit in front of that tool and ask it anything. So that it's very hard to discuss what to do practicality-wise if you haven't even had an experience or an interplay with these tools. So I think that would be step one for those that haven't yet explored what we've been discussing tonight. But if you already have been interacting with these tools, I would urge you to make a commitment to keep learning. I know that may not sound super practical, but it's important, right? These technologies are designed to self-learn and keep learning without human intervention, although we are deeply involved with them. But they're designed from the get-go and with the North Star vision that they will self-learn or be autonomous. And so, so really just to reframe your mindset that we too have to continue our learning. That learning is an ongoing journey, and to commit to that. And when you do that, I think from then you can pick and choose what to do to refine that path for your
30 seconds.
Oh my gosh. That for all the fear and uncertainty, most of us want to succeed in this AI ecosystem that we have, because for the topics that we just discussed, that no matter how often we speak here of ethics or concerns and risks and stuff like that, there are geopolitical tensions out there that pose a lot of risk. And so I think as a society, we have to band together to maintain USA's advantage over our allies and not so friendly foes.
All right, Tom?
Yeah, so a practical step I would say is, a tool that I sort of recommend you guys take a look at is a tool called Perplexity. It's, I don't know if you've heard of Perplexity, it's PERPLEXITY.AI. So what's cool about that is it's a very practical new kind of AI-powered search tool. And so what it'll do is if you say, hey, I like to figure out how to plan a trip to New Zealand or something, right? This is a question I get oftentimes, is you can type that into Perplexity. I'd like to plan a trip to New Zealand, give me suggestions. It'll actually go out and search the web for trip suggestions and then give you a summary that actually makes sense, as compared to like the older school Google search, which just gives you a whole bunch of links and you have to like poke around and find stuff. So definitely take a look at go to Perplexity and then put in some questions about a topic that interests you, whatever that it could be. It could be gardening, it could be how do I make some ideas for fun projects for my kids or my grandkids, or I've always wanted to learn more about where the Mariana Trench in, it's really deep. I know I've heard about it at some point on National Geographic or something.
But the headline is it's really deep. That's what.
So the key thing there is that the AI tools enable you to explore and do things that you can do today with traditional Google search or going, somewhere else and doing research, but find something that you're interested in or something you're good at and figure out how to use some AI tools, to do it more effectively or to explore something. I think the exploring self-learning mindset is the thing there. So just figure out something that you're interested in and say, hey, even do a Google search and say, hey, I'm interested in learning about this and that. What are some AI tools you recommend? And some stuff will pop up and just start clicking through stuff. And then certainly Perplexity is a great one. That's the really hot AI-powered search engine. So that's a practical tip there, right? So find something interesting. And then where do I see this thing going?
No. Not where you see it going. Best case scenario.
Best case scenario? Yeah, I think that I think people can have a better quality of life. I think people are going to have a better quality of life. AI is going to automate a lot of things, reduce a lot of the things that just bog us down and take time away from doing things we really want to do, like spend time with our kids, or gardening is a big one. I would love to do some gardening. I never have time to do it. Work on my own 1985 vintage motorcycles. That's something I really would love to have time to do, right, for sure. I know I like that. And then automating some of the things that are difficult. That's best case scenario. I think there also is a scenario where there is going to be a group of people that are going to struggle to find employment, and the best case scenario there is that, the universal basic income, or UBI, that's been talked about, that we find a way that society can function in a healthy way, that we do provide for those who can't, find work or don't quite have the skills to be part of an AI ecosystem. If we can manage to figure out how to balance regulation and all those things, income for people, that would be a best case scenario. So.
Okay. And Ralf, same question to you, and then I have just a last comment, and then we'll adjourn.
Yeah. So I do struggle just keeping up with this development in AI and where it's going and who does what, and what works for me is, I think I mentioned it earlier, I have a few trusted sources that sort of curate and summarize and really lift up the real big breakthroughs and things, and I just, I'm not getting the MIT Technology Review. They have multiple sort of tracks, if you will. They have a physical magazine for us old schoolers, so you can flip through it every 2 months, And but they also have an app, so you can read it wherever you are. They have multiple technology tracks, one of which is AI. Some of it is computing, including quantum computing, cloud computing. Others is biotechnology, CRISPR. By the way, these things are all connected. This is the beauty and the scary thing about technology and emerging technology. It all feeds of each other. So I would implore you, find one of those and stay plugged in. In terms of best case scenario.
Yeah.
Oh, and one other thing, do engage. I know we don't have Congress people and senators here, but do engage with the politicians, for this smart regulation. They don't know which side is up, frankly, most of them. Some of them do. But without a conversation, you were getting nowhere, right? And they need to know that we as a society demand some smart regulation. We do not want social media 2.0, and we cannot just trust the Mark Zuckerbergs and Sam Altmans and whoever they are, Elon Musks, as brilliant as it is to catch a rocket, with 2 chopsticks, but we cannot trust them with this. We all need to be in there. So sorry, I keep going on.
No, it's okay.
In terms of best case scenario, heck, 2 AI researchers just got 2 Nobel Prizes, Hassabis and DeepMind, who solved protein folding. That has humongous potential of, drug discovery, new compounds. Also figured out how to keep stable with an AI model where it's, we used to do it and never got stable plasma in a fusion reactor. All of a sudden, the thing, when you these things have to run eventually for months on end, But if we solve that, we have unlimited energy, right? So what I'm hoping in 5 years is that AI has proven a couple of these, like, that makes catching a rocket ship with pincers, look like child's play, like really solving big problems. And at the same time, we have not gotten to social media 2.0, and we don't know which side is up any longer, and the AI whispers us crap in our ears.
So that's all really great stuff. I'm going to cheat and answer my own question as well. I largely echo the sentiments that everyone echoed just now, or that they relayed just now. I think in terms of what to do, it's be curious, right? Start with, I think it was Tom who said, start with something that you're already interested in, and figure out how to enhance that with some aspect of AI, right? Take something that you're already curious about, something that you're already interested in. But the important thing to me is to always be curious. If you can't learn any of this stuff or anything really if you're not curious. So be curious about it. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend like it's not there. I think in 5 years, I said in one of the previous talks that we have historically always figured out how to balance the good and the bad of technology, right? Sometimes we get a little too far one direction. I do think AI is going to be massively disruptive in the short term. I don't know what that disruption is going to look like, but I think it will be disruptive. I think over time, though, we'll figure out that balance and we'll figure out how to make it work. And I think 5 years from now, we'll be talking about the next set of technologies that we've got to worry about and figure out how to balance. So that's my perspective. With that, I want to thank everyone for being here. Thanks to the panelists. I think this was a great conversation, a great set of responses. So thank you.